Muted.
Hello, and thank you for dialing into our Insiders Open Forum webinar. This is our webinar where you become the focus of our conversation, and we talk about the things that you want to talk about. We've got 2 submissions today, and we're going to go in the following order. We're going to start with Stephanie, and we're going to move to John Detweiler. So we'll go with that order. Let me see if I can get Stephanie on here. Stephanie, you should be live with me now, Stephanie.
I am live, and I am muting my computer. Is that okay?
Okay. I can hear you just fine.
Okay.
And by the way, I didn't realize that you were going to be on the call today when I sent you that email about the home show. So happy coincidence. It's good to talk to you.
Yes.
Twice in one day.
It is great.
Well, I did get your email from Judy about what you wanted to talk about here. Why don't you just go ahead and ask the question so everybody can hear it, and we'll just take it and roll.
Sure. I am reading a lot of books and emails and blogs about content, and I'm getting confused between 2 terms: branded content and content brand. And I was wondering if you maybe could shed some light about what kind of content I should be looking for, and how do you even go about starting to build great content? That's pretty much the question.
Give me a little bit more information. I'll just ask you a couple questions to clarify. Are you talking in terms of web content?
Content for blogs, yes, web content.
Okay. Let me first start by saying that I'm not real sure what they mean by those terms, because I don't really necessarily follow. You know, everybody's kind of got their own terms, and different things mean different things to different people. I don't know if there's a mainstream definition to what those terms mean or not. I'm assuming there probably isn't, or you probably wouldn't be as confused. Mm-hmm. So I think the real question is not so much what do these terms mean, but I think your last question was really what you're trying to get at, which is just the idea of creating good content, right?
Yes, because I want to be the answer to the person's search where they're searching. I want them to come to my blog. I want them to follow my blog. I want them to rave about my blog, follow it, digest it. But I need to get there first. So how do I figure out what this content should be, and where do I even go about starting? My blog is going to start next week, and I want to make sure I make it relevant, interesting, entertaining, informative, and related to my target audience.
Okay. Well, I mean, you understand the basic premise of this whole idea of a blog, because you just laid out the major ideas: interesting, entertaining, relevant, and so forth. The real question then becomes, well, how do you accomplish that? A big part of that is going to fall to your ability to be able to write effectively. And that's something that I don't think I don't know if I'm qualified to train that or not. I've been trying to train people how to write for the better part of 20 years, and at the end of that, here's what I found: that people that know how to write can be pushed in the direction of a style, and people that don't know how to write, I don't really know how to help them. That's not a comment about you, Stephanie, at all. I have no idea how well you can write. You could be, fantastic. You could be terrible. I don't happen to know. So, and I don't think it matters for this discussion. But I think it's important to say that, you either start with some inherent ability to write well or you don't, and you're going to need to evaluate that in yourself. The next thing that you want to do is you want to try to get a feel for what it is that people are interested in. And I'm going to encourage you to not be too bound to your singular topic. Now, of course, you need to keep things in the neighborhood of what you're talking about. If you're talking about home improvement, probably the last thing you want to do is weigh in on your opinion on Obamacare, pro or on, right?
Yeah.
But don't be afraid to stray a little bit, because you want to keep it a little bit interesting. The thing that we have a problem with in the home improvement world is that it's a fairly narrow topic with a fairly, if you're not creative, narrow set of things to talk about. And that's good and that's fine, but the reality is, I mean, think about your average person who you're going to be talking to. How often are they going to be doing home improvement projects, realistically?
I don't know. I feel like sometimes you're always having a little project going on in your home. Maybe not a big one like siding. So.
Well, that's what you would like to think. The reality is most people don't typically have a project going on. I mean, they may have some handyman work that needs to be
Little
done.
things, yeah.
But they really just don't. So if you start focusing too much on, hey, here's some tips for remodeling. Here's some things you need to know about remodeling. Here's, more information about remodeling. People are going to tire of that fairly quickly, simply because they're not always thinking about remodeling. So what we want to do is we want to look at that and say, well, what can we do to expand this topic so that it still makes sense, but it has a little bit broader appeal. So we look at it and we say, okay, the topic, instead of making it remodeling, let's make the topic this word here, home. Okay, now that opens it up quite a bit. What kinds of things can we talk about that are related to the home? Well, that automatically gives us extra categories. It could be lawn things. It could be decorating things. It could be, I don't know, let's make a list. I'm doing this off the top of my head. Lawn, decorating, fixtures, furniture, remodeling certainly is in there. Do it yourself, handyman, increasing your home value. And there's lots of different ways to do that. These are general categories of topics that I'm coming up with in 11 seconds, but since I started talking about it. Give me 11 minutes, I could probably come up with a pretty good list. Give me 11 days, I could probably come up with a really, really good list, and I'm sure you could too. But now here's what we've done, is we've taken this very narrow topic and we've opened it up a little bit so that people are probably more likely to be interested on an ongoing basis. Because let's face it, you're saying, how often do you want to do a blog posting?
We're going to be doing it every Friday.
Okay, so let's just call it once a week, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so on about the 18th in a row remodeling blog, a lot of your target audience is going to fatigue at the topic.
Okay.
You with me?
Yes.
Now, here's how you can overcome that, because here's the other side of the coin. Well, I don't want to go too far off topic, because then, I want to be known as the remodeling expert, and if I'm over here talking about lawn and garden, how does that pull back to me? Well, here's how it pulls back to you. First of all, what you want to do is create a schedule of your blogs, okay? And I'm going to recommend that you schedule out. Here's ideal, a full year. Here's more likely a half a year, and here's the bare minimum. I wouldn't even start unless you have a quarter, 13 weeks, okay? And if you do this, the first thing you want to do is you want to have general topic, or let's call it category. And let's do a 13-week run here. Well, if we've got 13 weeks, how many out of 13 weeks can we the category of remodeling without overly fatiguing and letting people know that this is our main thing? Well, if it was half, that would be 6 or 7 out of 13, right? Mm-hmm. And then 6 or 7 on a different topic. Let's take it out so we got an even number. 26 is a half a year. I would say out of 26 weeks, if you did maybe between 10 and 12 on remodeling, and you did the other 12 to 14 on other topics, but see, each of the other topics is only going to have 2 or 3, right?
Yeah.
So here's what they see. Remodeling, other category. Remodeling, other category. Other category, remodeling. Remodeling, other category, remodeling. And cumulatively, over the course of a half of a year, they see a lot more remodeling stuff than they see other stuff. You with me?
I got it.
So I might come in here and I might say remodeling for week 1. Number 2, We might do lawn and garden. And again, if you don't want to do lawn, I'm not imposing that on you. I'm just giving you very quick ideas, okay? So don't take anything I'm saying too literally or specifically. But then week 3, we come in and we say remodeling. Week 4, I might come in and say handyman. Week 5, I might say remodeling again. Next, I might say...
Oops, sorry.
That's okay.
This microphone is very touchy. My phone, I can hear myself with my pencil moving.
That's okay. It's fine. It's not a big deal.
Okay, so I pretty much understand what you're saying. I think the overall picture is that treat content like an asset to them. Make it interesting. Give emotional storytelling.
Well, so we didn't even get to that part yet. We're only talking so far about what kinds of things to talk about in the first place. Right?
Yes.
So I'm encouraging you to not just talk about one thing. That was what that whole discussion was. Now we're getting into the discussion of, okay, now once we know the categories we're going to talk about, how do we make it more interesting? So here's a couple of tips for you on that. Tip number 1, do some research with a Google keyword tool. And you could literally Google keyword tools to find Google keyword tools, okay? And then what you can do is you can go in there and you can type in things like lawn and garden or remodeling or siding or any things that you can think of, and it'll show you other things that people are searching for. And what you want to look for is things that people are searching for a lot. And then you want to write articles about things that people are searching for a lot. Because here's what that tells us. Oh, people are interested in that.
Got it.
So if you get an idea that you want to talk about remodeling, you might come in there and say, okay, well, what about remodeling do I want to talk about? Well, I want to talk about siding. Okay, well, what about siding? We'll go look and see what kinds of things people are talking about. The other thing you can do is you can create a list of themes. Okay? List of themes. Well, when you talk about remodeling, maybe you want to have one theme is before and afters. It tells some stories, case studies, right? Another one you might want to tell is remodeling disasters.
People love those.
Everybody always wants to hear about those, right?
Yeah.
Here's what went wrong. Here's why it went wrong. Here's what you can do to make it not go wrong. I mean, everybody loves to drive slow past the wreck so they can see the blood and guts. And that's crude and it's rude to say it, but it's true.
Yes.
Okay, so category number 3 maybe is, do-it-yourself remodeling.
DIY.
Think of some different categories within each of these segments. You know, maybe one is a how-to series. And then you sit down and you think of, okay, well, how to what? How to choose, the right kind of siding. How to, whatever. I don't know. You tell me. But here's what I'm suggesting is within the category of remodeling, now we've got themes, right? And then you can recur these themes over and over. Here's what I'm encouraging you to do. First and foremost, I'm encouraging you ideally to look at a full year before you ever start and have a roadmap of what you want to do. Because I guarantee you the number one thing that will derail this whole project is when you don't have a roadmap of what you're going to do and it's Thursday and you're trying to get your thing done by Friday and you don't even know what topic you want to start on. That will derail
I completely agree.
anything else, okay?
Okay.
Sit down and go through that process. Now, once you do that, then the next item is coming up with good headlines. Now, let me give you some ways to come up with good headlines. We've got some headline writing exercises. You know that from MWAM. So there's one. I'm just going to leave that right there. But here's another good one. Download on your phone. You don't have to download it. Just open Yahoo on your phone.
Okay.
and create a bookmark for it, and then go to it, and then just every couple of days start reading the headlines. Okay, here's the headlines today. Joke turns into strange hoops giveaway, and there's a picture of somebody playing basketball. Kool-Aid stand becomes charity phenomenon. The next investment frontier, human capital. Super seeds you should be eating now. Why Jimi Hendrix hated his singing voice. Tom Brady's 6 most memorable hairstyles. Iran claims deal reached on nuclear program. Kerry's claim about U.S.-German relations. Warning, incredibly cute pandas ahead. Space satellite to crash down to Earth. Democrats frustrated with Obamacare rollout. Church league could cost freshmen a season. Oops, Biden congratulates wrong man on win. And read these headlines. Here's what you're looking for. Interesting headlines, inflammatory headlines. There was a blog this last week. I don't get into reading a whole lot of blogs. My wife reads several blogs on the topics of decorating and relationships, parenting, things like that.
Hmm.
And she told me about a blog that this guy wrote this last week that caused a huge uproar in the blogosphere. And the title of the blog was, I've decided that marriage isn't for me.
Wow.
And the whole topic of this is, his whole point was, he's come to a conclusion after having been married for a certain amount of time that the point of marriage is to serve your spouse and to focus on your spouse's happiness and not your own selfish needs and wants. So now, with that being said, go back and look at the headline of the blog. I've decided that marriage isn't for me. Well, it has a whole different feel, right?
Yeah.
But this is a very inflammatory kind of a headline. Now, it doesn't mean that the article is inflammatory and that the article is, saying weird, controversial things, although surprisingly that turned out to be an extraordinarily controversial topic. Believe it or not, it really
Yeah.
did.
Actually, it was on Facebook. I saw it on Facebook.
Yeah. So see, there's a post that goes viral. Now, I'm not saying that your posts are necessarily going to go viral and be this big phenomenon given the topics that you're talking about, but, who knows? And, look for these kinds of headlines that are really going to make people stop and go, hey, I wonder what that is, because the reality is you got to look at how are your blog postings going to be distributed out into people's eyes and ears. And you're going to post them on your site, but you're also going to be posting them on Facebook and other social media. You're going to be pushing them out there via email, and you've got to have headlines that really capture people and make them say, hey, I wonder what that's all about. The best time to remodel, the best time to add siding to your house just really doesn't sound that interesting.
That's boring.
But, how to keep the termites fed and fat, that's a little more interesting. Whatever. I'm coming up with this on top of my head.
Yeah.
But this is the real key, is to come up with these headlines. And then, of course, when you write the story, that's where you really get in. See, all of the things that we've talked about now have nothing to do with how well you can write stories.
Yes.
They just talk about how to, have interesting topics that people are going to want to read and put headlines on them that people will click through to. But then, of course, it ultimately comes down to, is it a good blog posting? Is there quality in the writing and the style and the format? Storytelling, like you mentioned earlier, is always a good way to handle it. So I won't get into those things, but hopefully those are some good preliminary kinds of.
No, I like this idea. I have started an editorial calendar, and I have blogs on there, so I will make sure I go further out before I start.
Yeah, Stephanie, I would really, really recommend that you have a 13-week schedule before you even write the first word of the first blog.
Okay, got it.
Okay.
I appreciate it. I have to go meet with Habitat for Humanity now, so I got to run.
Okay, thanks. We'll see you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay. Thank you to Stephanie. And let's see, I've got John on the line, but I see that your line is not unmutable. It says here that you need to input your audio pin. And somehow our service, instead of making audio pins 2 or 3 digits, has now decided that it would be fun to make the audio pins, 10 or 11 digits. So it's a little harder for me to tell you to pin it in. Rich Sirocco, I see that you said, I see that the screen is not changing. It's not supposed to change there. I didn't show anything. Okay, let me do a quick look here to see if we've got an update on John. John, if you can hear me, sometimes the only thing I can tell you is to hang up and dial back in. If you've already input your audio pin, I've sent it to you, but I can't unmute you right now. Let me do a quick check here. Give me just a second. Now, the good news is, John, if I can't get you on board here, I can still answer your question because I've already had a discussion with Dave Moffett about it. And here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and answer that. I'm going to talk to you. If you can get on board here so that I can talk to you, that would be better. But I'm going to go ahead and answer your question anyway because I already know what it is, and I've actually already answered it. Let's see. Okay, so the question has to do with canvassing. And is canvassing appropriate for the kind of client that he wants to attract? They've got two companies over there. One of them is, well, let's see here. I'll just read this. Burke's Home, which is more like a Honda, or should we say a Toyota, and the other company, Burke's Design Build, is more like a Lexus. So it's a higher-end company. We've got a big bill with a $0 offer. It's a premium company kind of a theme. And the question is it appropriate to do canvassing? And by the way, I see, John, that you're on here. So, John, can you talk to me now?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. So have I described the question well so far?
Yeah. I lost you there for a minute because I did have to hang up and dial back in, but I caught the end of what you were talking about.
Yeah. Okay. So the question is about canvassing, and you've got two companies, one of them being a little bit higher end, or maybe a lot higher end. And is it appropriate to do canvassing for those kinds of customers? Is that right, or do you want to add something to that before I kind of jump in?
No, you pretty much nailed it. That was my question.
Okay. So there's a couple of things to keep in mind on this. First of all, when I'm talking about canvassing, I'm using a different definition of canvassing than the traditional home improvement canvassing definition. The traditional home improvement canvassing definition is a van full of guys that you hire at the lowest possible wage because the only kind of people that will take canvassing jobs are lower end of the spectrum kinds of guys. You dump them out on the street corner. They distribute through the neighborhoods, knocking doors, trying to set appointments. That type of canvassing is really hard to do. Some companies are good at it. If you are, more power to you. It can be very effective, but that's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about canvassing that is part of a bigger program of what we call a multi-touch campaign. And there's a couple of key differences here. What I'm talking about is called micro-canvassing. So in terms of a larger multi-touch campaign, here's what we're typically going to be trying to do, particularly when it comes to proximity marketing around the jobs that you're currently doing. And if you're doing a higher-end job on a higher-end home, ostensibly the neighbors are also higher-end kinds of neighbors. So what we want to do is we want to have a multi-touch campaign. This is going to typically include things like job site signs, take-one boxes with flyers if that's appropriate for the neighborhood. And then we're going to do a mailing campaign. The mailing campaign should typically be focused on the identity of the company. We do typically 3 postcards. We'll do a check mailer if that's appropriate. We'll do a testimonial mailer, which is almost always appropriate from the client. Testimonial mailer is something that you have the client agree before you start the job that if they're happy with the work you've done. And John, I'm making an assumption that virtually all of your clients are happy with the work that you do. The kind of company you are, it's not like you're going to leave an unresolved problem. But the letter that you send out is something that the client doesn't actually write, but they do look at it and they give their approval to make sure that it says the kinds of things that they actually feel and they're comfortable with. We send these mailers out And then what we want to do is we get to the canvassing part of this is a couple of things. First of all, we want to hire one person to do it. And when I say one person, I literally mean one individual. We're going to look for a younger guy typically. I'm not very comfortable with female canvassers. I think there's some danger situations there. You know, you can use your own discretion on that topic, but for my purposes, I would use a male. I would find somebody between the ages of about 18 and 23 years old. They could be older. I mean, there's probably lots of guys that you can find that are older, but these are people that are young enough, have enough energy that you can pay them a relatively low amount of money to knock doors, but a stiff on doors that either are receptive or set appointments or ultimately go to a sale. But here's what I want. I want a kid that's attractive, that has a good appearance, that doesn't have, you know, unruly facial hair, doesn't have tattoos, all those kinds of things. I want him wearing a really nice-looking polo shirt, a really nice pair of khaki pants with a belt, not untucked, not unkempt, not a $12 logoed polo shirt, but more like a $35 logoed polo shirt. And I want him to basically look like the kid that would bring you your bill at the country club if you're at a really nice country club. I mean, this is going to be a nice-looking kid that's dressed the part. So when he shows up, there's still, I mean, everybody's always going to be concerned on the doorstep that, hey, somebody just knocked on my door. But when they first see this person, they're going to start to draw conclusions about who is he, why is he here, what kind of person is it. If they see that it's a little girl with a wagon with cookies in it, that's one set of reactions. If they see that it's, you know, some sort of homeless-looking person that's maybe selling magazines or whatever, that's a different reaction. We're not trying to judge what's good, bad, right, or wrong. We're just telling the truth about people making these kinds of snap judgments, particularly in the kinds of neighborhoods that you're talking about, which you've already defined as higher end. So we want them to see somebody that they look at and they have a reaction that is, this is a person that looks nice, okay? We also want them to very quickly identify themselves as being with your company, have the 5 mailers. I would take them, fan them out, stick them, staple them together so that they don't move, and then you're first going to say, hey, we sent these out. Did you get our mailers? We're doing a remodeling job for the tailors down the street or around the corner. I don't know if you saw some of our mailers. And then we've got a lot of things that are going for us right in this environment. Let me name specifically what the things are that are going for us right. First of all, we've already touched them multiple times with the mail. Now, that being said, it's very possible that the person that answered the door never saw the mailers. Maybe somebody else in the house saw them, but the person answering the door didn't. But there's also a pretty good chance that the person answering the door has seen some of the mailers, so that's going to help. Number 2, it's a proximity campaign. So when they say, hey, we just remodeled the kitchen or the tailors around the corner, or we just did an addition, or we just did whatever the job was, we've got that proximity. We've got the nice-looking person that doesn't look intimidating, that doesn't look weird or disheveled or threatening in any way. So there's a likelihood of acceptance. This doesn't mean that they're going to be thrilled. This doesn't mean that they're going to say, my gosh, come on in and sell me a remodeling job. But we've lined up enough moons that you've got a pretty decent shot. I would recommend strongly that this canvasser carries a clipboard. Here's why. The clipboard has a list of the homes that you've already sent the mail to. Every time he knocks on a door, he's going to record what happened. He's going to record the person wasn't there, or they said they weren't interested, or they were, really not interested, or they said come back later because my mom's not home, or whatever the case is. Maybe they set an appointment. Maybe they said, give me a brochure. And they're going to make a note on there. Any door that had no resolution, in other words, they weren't there, or the kid said come back later, you're going to leave a flyer on the door, and you're going to come back later. Not later that night, but later the next day after that. And you're going to continue to knock the doors of these homes until you have, it depends on the neighborhood. Maybe you can get a 60 or 70% penetration after 3 or 4 attempts. But here's what you're not doing on the second attempt. You're not knocking all the doors. You're only knocking the ones that you haven't already talked to somebody. The last thing you want to do is knock on somebody's door again that already told you to bug off. So with all of these elements in place, I say absolutely, positively go for it. and I think it can be successful for you. The option is to not do it, and I really don't feel like somebody's going to say to themselves, well, you know, I do need my home remodeled, and I like what I know or see of your company, but because this guy knocked on my door, you know, I refuse to do business with you. I just don't see that happening. So it's kind of my feel on that. Give me your feedback, your thoughts or comments.
Actually, you know, but my question would be, it's certainly registering what you're saying, and I'm certainly following you there. You know, my question would be then, really, what is the primary goal then of this canvasser? Just to kind of add a final personal touch, or is it? I mean, I guess I don't see this person really, given the age, you know, we're talking about in this person. I don't see him really having the experience to really have an in-depth conversation about my company or set appointments or things like that. So, and maybe I'm wrong here. I'm just speaking off the top of my head. So, you know, my question would be then what is his primary goal?
His objective is to find people who are interested in talking to your company, okay? Now, you're right. There's going to be varying levels of ability with this person. Now, if you can find this person, and I'm not suggesting it's easy to just go round this person up, but if you find this person, I would invest as much time and effort and energy as it takes to get this person to where they can answer some questions. But what we really want them to do is set an appointment, and that appointment might be for a callback from a representative from your company. It might be for somebody to come out there and actually set the actual appointment. But most realistically, they're probably going to be getting people to say, yeah, you know, I have a project. I'm interested in getting it done. And, yeah, I'd like to talk to somebody from your company. Because here's what you can do. You can school this canvasser on your identity, what you do. Let's take your identity for just a minute. I know a little bit about it. We can create scripts for them. Let me pull up your identity on my screen here for a minute. And I haven't talked to you for a while, so perhaps it's been not necessarily changed, but probably modified and fine-tuned a little bit, but it's going to be pretty close. Let me just pull it up real quick.
Sure.
Let's see, Burks. Okay, so a big part of what you talked about is design build, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we wrote this headline, and again, perhaps it's been fine-tuned since it was first written, and I'm acknowledging that. So if it's changed, don't be too alarmed. And it's not really important right now to say, well, that's not really exactly what we say. But just to give people the general idea, to give you the general idea, okay? Our unique, all under one roof design, build, process, mixed remodeling, and custom building, truly fast, easy, and pleasant. When the design and construction are both handled by one firm, all of the pricing, ambiguity, communication gaps, finger pointing, construction delays, cost overruns, and unpleasant surprises just go away. I mean, that's still the essence of what you do, right?
Yep.
Okay. So this is an interesting thing. I mean, we want people to understand this. So one thing that we always like to do when we have canvassing is we like to create what we call qualification questions. Qualification questions are a series of questions to be asked with the intention of uncovering interest and urgency in the prospect. So in other words, we would want to ask them questions that help us to see if they'll engage in a conversation with us. If they don't engage in a conversation with us, if they keep trying to push us away, then we know, maybe it's just not either the right time to have a conversation, or maybe they're just genuinely not interested. So we might come up with a list of qualification questions, then go into some of the identity points. So for instance, I knock on the door. I say, hey, Mrs. Johnson, I'm Randy from Burks Home Design Build. I don't know if you've seen, we've sent some of these postcards out. We've been doing a kitchen remodel on the Taylor's home around the corner at 1231 Whispering Oaks. Did you see any of these? Either yes or no, right? They either saw them or they didn't see them. Yeah, well, we're in the neighborhood now, and I just wanted to stop by, let you know that we're here, and just want to ask you a quick question. Have you thought about doing any remodeling in your home? Now, you tell me real quick, just as a side note here, what are some of the main kinds of projects that you do? Is it additions? Is it kitchens? What is it?
Yeah, large-scale remodeling, the kitchen, whole-scale, kitchen remodeling or large additions. So it's the larger projects that you can think of in remodeling.
Well, I'm assuming if you knock on someone's door, this is unrealistic, but just go with me. I'm assuming if you knock on someone's door and they said, hey, you know what, I've got this kitchen and I've really wanted to remodel it. Can you send somebody over to talk to me about it? And it turns out not to be as huge of a project as you normally do. You'd still be interested in at least talking to them. True enough?
Sure. Sure.
Even if they said, you know, I've got a bathroom, you know, in my spare bedroom that I want you to look at, you'd look at it, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we don't, you know.
So in other words, we don't
always
have to
initially
go
talk to people. We do sort of a, you know, a feasibility kind of conversation, like, you know, is the project feasible? Are we the right fit for you guys?
Right, but that's not where we want to go first. What we want to go first is just, do they have any kind of perceived need for the service at all, right? And what I'm suggesting is, we don't have to necessarily go in and say, hey, you know, do you have any large-scale remodeling project that you're thinking of? Because the reality is, you'll talk to them about any project.
Correct.
And if it happens to be large-scale, great. You can handle it. If it happens to be smaller scale, you know, then you'll see if it's worthwhile fit for both of you, correct?
Yeah, and we actually usually, if it's too small, we'll make recommendations for who they might want to go to. So we try to be helpful all the way around, whether we're the right fit or not.
Right. But given the fact that you're remodeling in this same neighborhood as your other job, even excuse me, even if it's a quote unquote smaller job, it still might be, you know, an elaborate job, right?
Yeah, and sometimes even it's worth us. Sometimes we do evaluate and take on smaller jobs just for the sake of having our sign up in that neighborhood, because we've recognized that neighborhood has a you know, potential for further projects.
Okay, so all of that is really just to establish this. This guy who's canvassing, he doesn't have to look for big, huge jobs. He just needs to look for any kind of interest. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So as we get back to the qualification questions, yeah. So I just wanted to check and see, do you guys have any kind of remodeling projects that you've been thinking about recently, whether it be kitchens or bathrooms or adding, you know, room additions or gutting, remodeling, anything like that. And you guys could help me word that better than I just did, but we don't need to for our purposes right now. And then the person simply says yes or no or maybe, right?
Mm-hmm.
If they say yes, oh, okay, well, what kind of job is it? Really? So how long have you lived in this house? Mm-hmm. How old is how old is the kitchen in play? Is it more the fixtures that are a problem, or is it the appliances, or is it everything? And all we're doing is this. We're pre-establishing questions that we can ask people so that we can look for interest and desire, interest and urgency. What we're looking for is somebody to have a conversation with your person. That's what we're looking for. And if they push them away, you know, have you thought about doing any remodeling in your home? Oh, you know, yeah, I'm not interested. Okay, now we know that they don't want to have a conversation. But if they say, well, you know, I thought about remodeling my kitchen. Oh, really? So how long have you lived in this house? All I'm trying to do is have a conversation with them. That's all. It doesn't take a genius. It doesn't take the owner of the company. It doesn't take a trade salesman. It's a set of specific questions. How long have you lived in this house? Oh, you know what, I'm busy right now. I don't want to talk to you. Okay. How long have you lived in this house? Oh, well, we've been here almost 10 years now. Really? And have you ever remodeled your kitchen or bathroom or anything in that time? Well, no, we haven't. How old is the house? How long was it here before you moved in? Oh, geez, I'm not really sure. I think the neighborhood was built like in the early 90s. Okay, so is it safe to say the kitchen's maybe, you know, close to 20 years old? Okay, so have you looked at remodeling it? Have you called in a contractor? Have you talked to somebody? Has somebody been referred to you? These are all things that can be scripted. Mm-hmm. No, we haven't really taken any action. Okay, well, and then we go in for the close. And the close is we want to see if they'd be interested in talking to somebody from our company. Well, you know, the Taylors from around the corner, they hired us because, now here's where your identity goes in, because we're what's called a design-build company. Are you familiar with the term design-build? Well, here's what that means. We have everything under one roof, the design and build, so that remodeling is really fast, easy, and pleasant. Okay? What happens when the design and construction are both handled by one firm, then it removes all of the ambiguity, all of the communication gaps, all of the finger pointing and construction delays, cost overruns, the things like that you hear about that aren't that pleasant. It all goes away when you handle the design and the construction in one company, and that's what we do. That's why the Taylors hired us. That's why we have such a good reputation, And, maybe that's something that we could help you out with. Is there a chance that we could send a representative for our company to talk to you about some things that you might want done? And look what I'm doing. I'm using very soft language. Is there a chance that we might send somebody over that could talk to you about some possible projects? I'm not trying to say, hey, we've got a person that we'd like to send over to give you an estimate on a project. It's totally different. Soft language. It can be trained to an 18-year-old or a 22-year-old. And all this guy's trying to do is go through a set of qualification questions. If they seem like they're interested, he's going to throw out your identity. The reason the Taylors hired us is because identity, identity, identity. And I'm on your doorstep simply trying to see if anyone else in this neighborhood has a project that they'd like for us to take a look at. There's no obligation. We'll send somebody over, talk to you about it. If it's a good fit, that'd be fantastic. We'd be honored to have you as a customer. If the timing isn't right, that's okay. If it's something you just want to kind of take a look at but you're not ready to do, that's okay too. We've been around for 17 years. We're going to be around for another 17 or 27 or 47 years. So if you want to do it now, fantastic. If you want to do it later, this is all about just taking a look and seeing what you guys might need done. Does that sound like something that I could have somebody call you? Oh, well, yeah, I guess so. Okay, great. Here's what I'm going to do. Could you give me your phone number, please? What I'm going to do is I'm going to have John Detweiler from our company. He's the vice president of this, or he's the owner, or he's the whatever title that sounds impressive. I'm just going to let him know that you're a neighbor of the Taylors and that you've been thinking about remodeling your kitchen, but you're really not ready to do anything yet. You're just thinking about it. You'd like to look at some ideas. I'm going to have John give you a call and talk to you about that. Maybe if it works out, he could set an appointment to talk to you. If not, whatever. And I'm trying to be very, very non-pushy because the worst thing you can do in a door-to-door, face-to-face environment is be pushy.
Sure.
I'm trying to look like an ambassador of the Taylors. Not like I'm out there going, hey, the Taylors told me to come to your house. But look how I presented this whole discussion. We're with the Taylors. We sent you this stuff. We're in the neighborhood. We're just trying to see if anybody else might need some remodeling. Let me ask you this. How long have you been in this house? Just 2 months, just 2 years, 10 years, whatever the case is. Oh, so have you thought about remodeling? Is there anything that you've been wanting to do? Maybe a bathroom or kitchen, whole house remodel, anything like that? Do you have any other companies that you've been looking at? Has anyone been referred to you? If you had to pick up the phone right now and call a remodeler, do you even know who you'd call? You don't? Okay. You don't have any projects? Hey, well, that's no problem at all. What I want to do is just leave this with you, flyer. If you do have a need, here's our phone number. As you can see, we're unique because we're all under one roof. Just it, right? Identity. They don't want to talk to it. They don't have a project right now. Who cares? Leave them the flyer. Go through the identity pitch. Yeah, so if you ever need something, if you do decide to work on your kitchen, make sure that you hire a design build company. It's really important. And, of course, the Taylors felt good enough about working with us that they've hired us. And, if you have some needs, then we'd love to, help you minimize these kinds of problems by having design build also. Fair enough? And you know what? Here's some good phrases for you when you're talking to people, especially in an uncomfortable situation like canvassing. One of them is fair enough, and the other one is, does that sound reasonable? Because when you ask somebody, is that fair enough? Hey, let me give you this flyer. If you ever have a need, give us a call. Fair enough? Everybody agrees that that's fair enough. And when you ask people if something is reasonable, as long as it was something that was reasonable, people are quick to agree that's reasonable. Yeah, so here's what we're going to do. I'm going to give this number to John Detweiler. He's our vice president of X. He's going to give you a call, and he's just going to ask you some of the same questions I did, get a feel, see if it might be a good fit to even give you a quote. Does that sound reasonable to you? Well, very few people are going to say, well, that's not reasonable. Oh, yeah, that sounds reasonable. Okay, great. I've got your number here. Is that your home number or your cell number? Would you mind if I gave him your cell number? A lot of times it's hard to get people. He's probably going to call you within the next, 24 hours or so. Is that okay? I think this can be extraordinarily effective if executed properly. And if not executed properly, it could suck.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the beauty of canvassing, regardless if it's high-end, low-end, medium-end. The beauty of canvassing is something magic happens when you're standing face-to-face with people. And a lot of times, you know, people kick you out their door and they don't see you and it's uncomfortable and all that. But if there's any true interest at all, something magic happens when you're face-to-face with people. And you're not going to have a better chance to talk to that person than that situation. You're just not. So I wouldn't waste it. I would take it.
Okay. How large of an area do you recommend canvassing?
You know, I would look at it on a situational basis. Here's what I'm interested in. I'm interested in a person seeing the address and, number one, being able to recognize that as a street that's near them and near enough to them that it doesn't seem weird. Hey, we just did a job near you. And they go, what? I've never even heard of that street. That's not good. Hey, we just did a job near you, and it's a street that they've heard of, but it's a mile and a half away. That's not near me. That sounds weird. So I would look at it literally on a case-by-case basis, and I would say, you know, based on where this house is located, what street names are these people likely to be familiar with, and are they likely to consider to be close to them? And that could vary from job to job, depending on, you know, the size of the houses and the lots and the makeup of the neighborhood. You know, I live in a neighborhood that has 3 phases. Just by way of example, not that you care about my neighborhood, but I think it's illustrative to answer your question. There's 3 phases. All 3 phases encompass only about 200 homes, so it's not like it's this huge development. It's called Kirkwood Hollow, okay? There's phase 1, 2, and 3. I live in phase 1. Phase 1 is, I don't know, what is it, maybe only 40 houses? There's only 1 street. It's my street. Phase 2 has 2, 3 other streets. I know all the street names. I'm very familiar with them. If you said, hey, we're over on Marshall doing a remodeling job for the Johnsons, even if I don't know the Johnsons, I know that Marshall is just right around the corner from me. It seems like it's in my neighborhood. I get it. I go, oh, okay, you're in my neighborhood. Phase 3 is a little bit further away. There's a street over there called Stockton. You still with me, John?
Yeah, I'm there.
Oh, sorry, I heard a beep on my phone. I was a little concerned what that was. So, you know, you start getting too far away and it starts not feeling authentically like, you know, you're in their neighborhood. So that's really my best advice for you on that.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a little harder to gauge, but I think it's a worthwhile thing to gauge. And it takes a little bit of thought and intelligence, you know, okay. And maybe you, as you're driving around the job area, you look at it and say, okay, for instance, in my neighborhood, there's only 1 street that leads into all of the houses, just 1 street. So I have to drive by these other street names that are anywhere from 1/4 of a mile to 3/4 of a mile from my house, but they're all on the same development. So, you know, I'm probably familiar with all those street names. What I don't want to do by way of review is to name a street that they've never heard of or never had a chance to hear of, because I mean, maybe they're new and they just don't know. But if they've been there a while and they, you know, this is far away, that's just weird.
Mm-hmm.
What we're really looking for is people to go, oh, geez, that's just right around the corner. That's the reaction we want. Oh, geez, that's not far from here. I don't know that person, but I know that area. I know where that is. You know, most people that have lived in their neighborhood for more than, you know, let's say a year, they know the streets that are in the immediate vicinity. So that's it. So, you know what you might want to do is go back and listen to this. Again, we'll post it on our website. And actually, the guy that posted on the website is on vacation, so it won't be until next week. But, you know, listen to it again and just take some notes on some of the finer points, get the qualification questions put together, and you'll see what you can do. I think it can be very effective.
Okay.
Takes time and effort, but you know what? Anything you're going to do is going to take time and effort. And I like the things that put you face-to-face with the prospective client in a professional type of an environment, like we've just discussed.
Sure.
Okay?
Sure.
Okay. Hopefully.
Yeah, sorry, I've been taking notes, so if my response seems a little
No,
quiet,
not at all.
if I'm taking notes.
Not at all. So we talked about the setup. We talked about multi-touch. We talked about the way that the guy should look and the clipboard he should carry and the professionalism and all that. We talked about qualification questions, getting somebody into a conversation. If they show any interest at all, then we go into you heard me. It was a very brief discussion of the identity. I basically read the headline and the subheadline of your identity on your website. I didn't go into a lot of the detail. That's not appropriate for that environment. If they were not interested, I was polite. I thanked them. I gave them a quick rundown of our identity. Hey, if you ever do need some remodeling, here's why people hire us. I handed them something, a flyer that has your identity on it, hopefully. I use soft language. If you might, have you been thinking about this? If you did need something, what would it be? Very soft language, and this is a recipe for success.
Sure.
Think about how most canvassers are. They're the opposite. They're using hard language, and they're trying to get into people, and they're trying to break down walls. That's not what we're trying to do here.
Sure. You mind if I ask you one quick question?
No, go ahead.
Is this considered solicitation? I mean, some of the communities that we work in, or they're more community-based, have HOAs, things like that.
Yes,
and
it is.
They have like those no solicitation, signs at the front entry of the communities. Is this considered solicitation? Is this something that should not be done in that situation, or how does that?
Okay, well, now I don't know the legalities of the homeowners association or the laws in the cities that you're servicing and anything like that. So take those things into consideration. But generally speaking,
sure,
this is going to be looked at as solicitation. Here's a way that you can minimize that and could potentially still solicit in a no soliciting environment.
Sure.
Key word that I just used, potentially. Okay, I'm not saying, hey, this is a silver bullet of the work. But if
I understand.
If you even went down a notch on your pushiness, not that anything I just said was pushy at all, but if your person went around and knocked doors and said, hey, I'm just here to give you some information. We're working around the corner on the Taylor's house, and I just wanted to hand this to you. And they made it evident, hey, I just wanted to hand this to you.
Okay.
I think that you could probably make some inroads, because then here's what you're looking for. You're looking for the reaction of the person. Hey, we're in the neighborhood. We're around the corner at the Taylor. So now I've given some rationale as why I'm here. I'm not just randomly here. I'm here because I'm working around the corner. Okay, so that helps.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wanted to give you some information about what we do. And if the feeling is I'm just here to hand you something, then that's different than I'm here to sell you something. But then it's really important for that person to be able to read. It's like football. You got to read the defense, right? And you've got to be able to read the face of that person. And if they seem either disgusted, or if they seem irritated, or if they seem distracted, or if they have any kind of negative emotion on their face, or even neutral emotion on their face, then you want to hand it to them, thank them, and move on. If they have any kind of positive emotion or interested emotion or, oh, okay, yeah, then you could start asking them a qualification question. But I would give your canvasser strict, and I would role play this stuff with them too. I'd give them strict instructions. Hey, if you ask the first qualification question and you get any kind of a negative response, move on. So for instance, oh, so how long have you been in the house? Any kind of negative at all. Oh, hey, I got to get moving here. Thanks. Appreciate your time.
Yep.
But if they say, oh, well, geez, we've been here 10 years. Oh, really? And have you thought about remodeling? Well, we've been kind of thinking, okay, well, now they've invited me to have a conversation. See, this is not a hostile environment at this point.
Sure. Okay.
But you know what? You also, people get good at this. Maybe they don't get good at it, so you have to fire them and find somebody else. But people that have the ability to get good at this, they can get good very, very quickly, okay? So they knock on the door, and the guy comes to the door and he says, hey, what are you doing here? It says no soliciting. What are you thinking? Oh, hey, you know what? We're just around the corner at the Taylor's, and I was just handing out these flyers, didn't even want to say anything, just wanted to drop this off. Here you go. Thanks for your time. And then he's off, right? You got to read. You got to read quick.
Okay.
So, but you know, if there's no soliciting and it's posted, you're going to want to be careful with that, especially when you see houses that have no soliciting posted right on their doorstep. You know, trust me, I'm a guy. When I was 19 years old, I spent 2 years in Taiwan as a missionary, and I knocked a lot of doors. I learned a lot about canvassing, and I had a lot of dogs. I had a lot of angry people. I mean, you know, the whole gamut of reactions, and you learn pretty quick. Hey, this guy's not happy. I'm out of here.
Yeah.
And we learned real quick, when the door says no soliciting, if you hit the doorbell on a no soliciting door, that's probably nothing good's going to happen. Almost never is anything good going to happen. Now, if it's more of a neighborhood thing, then some of the things that we just talked about you might want to try. But if it's right there posted on their door, I wouldn't knock that door personally.
Sure.
You know, it's a good way to get dogs released.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyway.
All right. Well, I certainly appreciate your time.
All right, John. It's been a pleasure, and hopefully that's some help to you. Good luck to you.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Thanks. And that's going to wrap it up for the webinar today. So thanks to John and to Stephanie for participating, and those of you who are listening but not participating, asking questions. It takes all of us to make this webinar work. So thanks so much. We'll talk to you all next time. Bye now.
The organizer has